Hi, I'm LDS in Medium, and thank you so much for tuning in today. I want to try to bring religion and spirituality closer together, and this is what this pod is all about. I will talk about my own thoughts and feelings as I am both LDS and have spiritual gifts, something that I've had my whole life, but I always thought that it was hard to combine these gifts with my religion. This has torn me into two directions, and I have talked to many people who feel the same way. I can't choose not to have my spiritual gifts, but I can choose how I use them. And I always want to use them for good and to help others. I believe my heavenly parents gave them to me for a reason. So, this is me. Join my quest for knowledge. Tony Robbins, Day 4, Episode 5. Today we're going to talk a little bit about courage and faith and what that have in common.
So this episode is about let love guide you. There's so much going around in our lives most of the time that it's hard to stop and see patterns. It might be even good to evaluate yourself sometimes. So something that they said during this day was condition you so that you can hear through the static. And I read that as being able to evaluate and listen through everything that's going on every day around you. We came across a Hawaiian meditation, the Ho'onoponopono, which is about the heart and soul connection and forgiveness and accepting. In episode 9, we talked about forgiveness, and in that we also added the meditation and affirmation. And afterwards, we went back and we did a 15 minutes and a 60-minute meditation because you said that this really helped you when you were going through a hard time. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Like I say, I love browsing through YouTube, and one day I was sitting just scrolling on YouTube and I came across, I think it was an advertisement about it, and I just pressed it and I listened for a while. And that was when I was still in my angry state, like really mad, fuming state. And I felt slapped in the face when I heard the words, "I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you." And it was just, what am I supposed to be sorry for? Why do I forgive you and to say I love you and I'm sorry? I was really rebellious and I didn't want to see that I had anything to do with anything that had happened. I was the victim, I was sad, I was hurt, I was just heartbroken. And to hear that, "I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you," I was like, what are they talking about? He's the one that should say this to me. And I listened. I think that meditation was for about an hour, and I just listened. And somewhere along the way, the words kind of seeped into me. Then it took a couple of months later, I listened to it again. I came across it and I listened to it, and this time I had come longer in my healing process and I'd started losing a lot of the anger. Not all the time, but a lot of the time. When I listened to the words and I did another meditation, it brought me further and further. So every time I listened to it, I came to understand more, and finally I accept my part in everything that has happened. I accept that I'm not a perfect human being, but I can still say I did the best to my abilities then. But the person I was then doesn't have the knowledge that I have now. And so I need to understand who I was then and what my limited beliefs were then and what my limited experiences was then. And I have to forgive that person. And yes, sure, it's easy to say that I would go back and do things differently if I had another chance around. But then again, that's how I did it, with the knowledge that I had. And how I would do it now with the knowledge that I have. I understand now my part in everything that has played out. I understand now my actions, my reactions, my thoughts, my silence, and how it has affected everything. And so now I can say the words and I can mean it because I am sorry. And I want to say, please forgive me for everything that I did that hurt you, and I love you. I do love you. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. Please forgive me. I did the best that I could, but it wasn't enough. Thank you for everything that you have brought into my life and for my children. And I love you. Not the way I used to, but there are still emotions there, and part of me still loves you in a way, but not like it was. Now I can say it, now I can mean it, with a total different energy, with a total different vibration. And I'm grateful for the healing that these words have brought to me. If I could change something, I would say I'm grateful. I would like to add gratitude into the prayer. Maybe something like, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you, and I'm grateful. I don't know, that's my thought about it.
Well, I would say that took a lot of courage to say, but it seemed like when you first came across the meditation, you thought about that the words were to him, but then as you were talking, it sounded also like the words were to you. And then you came back to being him again. So I think it's also a matter of accepting and asking yourself to forgive yourself also in all of this. And they had some tips about when you let love guide you. And that was to solve the problems when they're still small, let go of labels, take responsibility, and then they talked about proximity and intimacy. I would say solving the problems when they're still small. Well, if you solve them early, they're not going to grow big. Because sometimes when things grow big, you come to a point when you're past repairing. When the damage or the hurt is so big that you don't really see a way of going back. And to come back from that, it's a much bigger effort than solving the problems when they're still small. And to solve problems, you really need to communicate. You need to communicate about what is the problem and how we're going to solve it together. Letting go of labels is about not imposing your thoughts about the other person on them. Not assuming that you know what they think or feel or how they're going to act, but rather leave those things up to the other person. Take responsibility is, well, you are in a relationship. If the relationship doesn't work, it's not just one person who's responsible, but there's actually two. So some people, they put a lot of focus on themselves and not so much focus on their partner. It's not really a good idea. When you focus too much on yourself, you become blind to the needs of the other person. You will start feeling mad when your expectations are not met. But you might actually want to also, well, have you been communicating your needs? And also, you can't really expect your needs to be met without you also being willing to meet the expectations or needs of the other person. And belief, assumptions, destroys and disconnects us from reality. In my first marriage, I came home one day and found my ex looking at apartments. We had not really had any fights, and sure, the relationship had not been great for a long time, but there was no communication, there was no chance of talking things over and see if things were gonna get better. And when just one person just checks out of a relationship like that, it leaves the other person without choices. So I did what I usually do. I pick up the pieces and I move on. But I remember one time I was talking to him and I said this before he moved out. I said, well, all these thinking that you've had in your head, because he was in his head a lot and he was doing a lot of thinking. And I said, with all this thinking that you've done, and this is your only conclusion and your only solution, well, I just felt that all that thinking that he did in his head didn't do us any good. And so I totally agree with that the thinking, belief, assumptions destroys and disconnect us from reality. But coming back to courage plus faith, let love guide you. If you have a child, what would that child have to do to make you stop loving them? Well, there's actually not that much that a child can do for a parent to stop loving them, because the love to a child is unconditional. And maybe all of our relationships should be like that. Let love guide you, or love like a child with unconditional love. So, some advice: don't stay in your head. Be willing to be vulnerable. Control and love don't go together. And remember, love is to give, but that needs to be 2 parts giving. Do you have any final thoughts about letting love guide you?
Letting love guide you. Well, for now, I'm really happy learning to love myself, and I'm really happy loving my family and my children. So the day I find someone else to love, I'll let you know and I'll get back to you. Does that sound fair?
Yes.
Until next time, be the light, share the light, spread the light, shine. This is my journey. Thank you so much for keeping me company today. Please download, like, share, and subscribe, and help spread the light and spread the word to expand our community. Let's bring more love, peace, and unity to this world. Take care of yourself and your loved ones. Always be grateful, kind, and loving. Be brave and remember to step out of your comfort zone and smile. If you support us on Patreon, you will get access to our meditations and extra materials so you can download them as MP3. Also, we now have a Facebook group, which you can access from our Facebook community. Please answer the questions as you apply to participate. It will be a safe haven where we can keep discussing religion and spirituality, our spiritual gifts, and self-development. Remember, one person can make a difference, but together we can change the world.